All right, let's see. Are we live on YouTube right now? Let me pull up YouTube just to make sure. Let's see. If we are live, you can go ahead, send me a little note, and I can see if you're on. Yes, we are. Amazing. Awesome. I am so excited for tonight, y'all. We have an amazing guest with us tonight. My name's JJ Warren. In case you're popping onto this YouTube channel because you know our amazing extra special guest tonight, I love doing this stuff. Get to talk about queer inclusion in the church all day long and really focusing on intersectional justice now. How can we in the queer community be better? How can we be better to people of color that are also queer, to people of color? How can we be better allies in general and not just be shitty white gay people, but also be allies of everyone? So I'm so excited to be talking about this series. Some of you may have caught me on Instagram Live with Kevin Garcia last week, and we talked a lot about kindness. And this idea of kindness, right, has been thrown around a lot recently, especially in the wake of the domestic terrorist attack on the U.S. Capitol, we just need to be kind and move on and heal as a nation. And I want to struggle with that a bit with you and with so many amazing authors and speakers and folks tonight. So, and throughout this next few months, as we struggle with this idea of kindness and try to find a way that marries kindness with justice and try to find spiritual resources for this conversation. So tonight, I am so excited to introduce you all to a very special guest, Crystal Cheatham, and I will pull her in right now. Say hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
And Crystal is, I'm going to talk about you in third person real quick. Crystal is amazing, an awesome LGBTQ activist, host of Lord Have Mercy, and the founder of the amazing Our Bible app. I highly recommend that you all go get that. I'll throw the link in the comments right now in a bit. Our Bible app, go check it out. And this is a space where folks have resources from all different identities. And so, Crystal, if you could say a bit about that and just say hello to everybody. I'm sure we'd all love to hear a little bit more about you before we dive into this idea tonight.
Yeah, everybody, it's really nice to be here. Thanks, JJ, for having me. I am the creator of Our Bible app, and we publish progressive Christian devotionals. We also have a library of podcasts and a chat space so that those of you who feel a little disenfranchised or a little like the progressive Christian community is fragmented, where you can find each other. So that's, a bit about the app. And we are starting a new project actually in February. We're doing a Kickstarter to launch an anthology. So we're starting a actual publishing imprint, like a publishing house. And the anthology has like 60 different writers in it, and it's called the Deconstructionist Playbook, which I feel like is something that we all need. And so, yeah, that's what we're doing.
That's amazing. I love that. That's so cool. And Crystal let me publish a Bible study there over 2 summers ago now. Can you
Is it really that long?
Oh my gosh, we're ancient. Says the 23-year-old. And so yeah, y'all can check out some amazing work on there. It's just so amazing. I mean, I remember growing up in youth group, and the Bible apps always had some pretty bad Bible studies on there.
Pretty dangerous stuff.
Yeah.
The homosexual is always the villain, as well as the unwed mother. And I just don't feel like that's the kind of faith we really need to see in the world. So thankful to all of the authors like you who are able to churn out something that really benefited the world that we're living in today.
Amen, and thank you. So I'm excited to dive in a little bit. And this first question kind of goes along with your work at Our Bible app. Yeah. So, at the amazing Our Bible app, you highlight so many different voices, which again is something we don't see in a lot of Bible apps developed by normally white men. And so I want to look at that idea of having so many different voices that aren't usually heard, you know, voices that would never be allowed to lead conversations, let alone write them, write Bible studies. And so
Right.
bringing in all of these voices, you know, that have been pushed to the margins, why is that important for someone from a marginalized position, someone that's been pushed out by white men? Why is it important for us to talk about something like kindness? Could this perspective, you know, how could this perspective from the margins change the way that, you know, white Americans think about kindness?
I think that representation really matters. And that is the forefront of my work. And when folks open the app, of course, they see covers for devotionals from all different kinds of people. And that represents the amount of authors that we have from each of those demographics. And me being a Black queer woman, the reason why I created our Bible app was because I would walk into Barnes and Noble and not be able to find anything that was talking to people or me in my specific situation. And so I honestly think that it's a personal kindness and a world kindness to make sure that you include people who are opposite voices from you, because it does this thing that Joe Lumen is constantly talking about, which is help to create a heaven on earth. And that is this idea that, you know, you don't have to die and go to heaven to experience some kind of a bliss, but that it is a responsibility of each of us to do the work of becoming better people, so that we can affect change and make newness on this earth. And I love to see it. And I hope that our Bible app, you know, actually helps that happen.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's really great. And I love that idea. You know, I think a lot of times classic white Christianity is, you know, we're getting into heaven, it's the world after. And I
Mm-hmm.
really like what you picked up on that, what you're mentioning, and you know what so many liberation theologians have been saying is, you know, it's this world is where it's happening. This world is where heaven has to be. It's yeah, and so I want to get into the weeds a bit. Like
Yeah.
let's get into it. Kindness right now. We just had a domestic terrorist attack on the Capitol,
So wild.
instigated by
Yeah.
a US president.
Yeah. I know.
And they knew, right, for days, if not weeks ahead of time, that something could happen. But they said that they didn't prepare as much as they did for, let's say, a Black Lives Matter protest, because they didn't think these people that were typing these things could actually do something violent.
Right.
And so, in the midst of all of that garbage, what what does kindness look like? I mean, I guess first of all, what are the negative ways that kindness is being used right now? What are some ways that you've seen kindness being used really badly? Yeah, let's start with that.
I mean, if we're going to talk about the insurrection, you know, just seeing the way that cops were being completely kind and giving these rioters the best intentions. You know, they were thinking that their actions were not as terrible as they actually were.
Mm,
Whereas if
mm,
it were a black and brown mob, it would have been perceived completely different. And
mm,
so I think that when it comes to kindness, you have to think of the root of why you were offering this kindness, right? Where does that
mm,
actually come from?
mm,
And for me, as I talk about how we need to change, we need to take it upon ourselves to become better humans. I think that folks in this predicament of how do we be better allies to our Black and brown community, our Indigenous community, our queer community, I think the first thing you should do is start reading some material. You should
mm,
start reading,
mm.
um, was it Fragile? Uh, what is it called?
Is it?
Now I want to like research it, but I know you're like Fragile Whiteness or something.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Now we're
Uh,
both researching. This is the
Right
kind of people we
Fragility.
are.
There we
Yeah.
go. I want you to read Right Fragility by Robin DiAngelo. And I also and Ryan DiAngelo is actually a white woman. And I think that you should also read I'm Still Here Black Dignity in a World Made for Whiteness by Austin Channing Brown, who's just freaking amazing, who is a Black woman. And those are two just like stepping stones to help you understand your role in the way that we as a society treat Black and brown bodies, and what you can actually do from the perspective of a Black person to stop sitting on the sidelines and actually take control of your role in it.
And yes, thank you for listing those resources. We've got a couple of them in the chat, and I'll work to get some more.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so yes, thinking about self-education, making sure that all of that emotional labor isn't on the affected people, so that as a white person, I need to be educating myself on these issues, because it's not just, oh, a riot happened and like, wow, I can't believe our country's racist.
Listen, I grew up in a family with 3 brothers, and then I had 3 more male cousins who were constantly in and out of the house, and I was the only girl, and it was constantly girls versus boys. But whenever my brothers would stick up for me, it just like made the world like a better place, you know? And if we can translate that to any otherness that you're challenged to accept and love upon, just think about how much of an impact it's going to make to the affected, like you were saying, right?
I love that. And as one of 7 children,
What?
yep, totally get it. Yep.
There's so many of us. It was freaking
I know. Yes, that's great. And so I think a lot of times, and I think we've seen this a lot with the presidency, and as people were talking about healing and wholeness, and as Republicans were calling for, we need to move on and heal, and I think kindness really plays into that a lot. Of we just need to be kind to one another so we can heal. And I think that what we're talking about in this series is that kindness doesn't just mean submissiveness, that kindness doesn't have to mean, and shouldn't mean probably, that we're going to ignore the gaping wounds in our society, but that kindness can, at its best, call us, into a responsibility, that kindness can do more than just be passive.
Yeah, when I think about the GOP and the things that they're saying about, oh, we shouldn't impeach this president, we should just move on. Their kindness is bordering on abuse, and it is very trauma inducing, because what you're really asking those people is to pretend like what happened didn't happen, that they didn't have those feelings about the insurrection, that their lives weren't threatened, that their country wasn't under siege, and just trying to blow it off. And that is an extremely unkind way to approach the situation. It would be much more enthusiastically helpful to address the problem and figure out how to tease it out and to talk about all of the issues with it and then move forward. So when I hear about politicians like Ted Cruz, and he's constantly waving back and forth of where he stands and stuff, and it's really frustrating. But just hearing him talk about how we just need to move on, and that we shouldn't, there should be no consequences for 46 as a president, or the writers themselves. It feels violent. It feels violent to me and all of us who felt personally affected, during that time.
I think you just named something that I'm realizing as we're talking, of a lot of it seems like kindness is towards people that we place value on. And so when, let's say, Ted Cruz is calling us to be kind, it's towards the white rioters, because that's who he views as worthy.
Yeah.
Whereas, as you just said, the kind thing to people of color is not to say, these riots were okay. The kind thing to everyone that was affected by this 4 years and this legacy we have as a country of racism, the kind thing is to really pay attention to this. And you just named that in a really good way. Yeah.
But I don't think that being kind is like this disgusting display of politeness, And I don't think that Ted Cruz is being kind to those rioters, where he says, y'all are fine, we're just going to move on from this. I think that it's a violent thing for him
Mm,
to pretend like their insurrection was somehow forgivable and not as terrible for the nation as it
mm,
actually was. I feel
mm,
like Ted Cruz pretending and 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 ordering this stuff under the guise of kindness is actually very violent in itself. It is
mm,
it is so mean not to tell people how you have actually been hurt by them or how they've
mm,
actually hurt other people. You know,
mm,
like if I had a child, which thank God I don't, that's not something I would do. I wouldn't be like, "Hey Tommy, I know that people are telling us that you went along in the playground and kicked everybody in the shin, but you know what? It's okay. It's okay because I know that you were having a rough day." Like I
mm,
don't know, whatever.
mm,
And I'm like,
mm,
that's not a nice thing to do to
mm,
Tommy, because Tommy's
mm.
going to grow up and think that it's okay to kick people in the shit all the time. You know?
I love this. Yes. Yeah.
Tommy's gonna get in trouble, like real trouble in life, if somebody
Yeah.
doesn't, particularly his mommy, tell him, you know, shut the fuck up, stop doing.
Yeah. Poor Tom. Yes.
Poor Tommy. Seriously, if I
Yeah.
had kids, they'd say
Yeah.
things for
No,
sure.
but that makes so much sense. Like even though he's, trying to be kind to the people that were inflicting pain, it's not
It's mean.
kindness.
It's
Yeah.
not.
Yeah. Yeah. So, moving on from the Ted Cruzes, and
Right. Get out of here.
all right, sashay away. Okay, so specifically, you know, what could kindness look like for queer women of color right now? How could you best show kindness to yourselves when you often are the ones who bear, that tripartite oppression of race, gender, and sexuality? So what could self-kindness look like for queer women of color right now?
I think for, it's hard for me to speak for all queer women of color, but statistically, I would say that we are the group who would most likely say yes to things that are outside of our ability to do because we see the need for them and how necessary it is for the world to have them. And so I would say for those of you who find yourself in my demographic, a Black, queer, lesbian, Christian woman, that it is okay to say no and know that there isn't going to be repercussions because you are unable. So I think the best kindness that you can give to yourself are boundaries. Figure out a way to set boundaries with your family. Figure out a way to set boundaries with what you're able to give conversations about social justice just like this. Figure out where you're able to give and where your cutoff point is. And I swear to God, and I believe in God so much. I swear to God that your strength will become like a well inside of you. It'll become a well and a fountain constantly feeding itself. You'll be able to rest and receive strength from yourself and from your own power.
Mm,
I just realized my brother's dog was in the picture. Did you see him? Milo, he's like
no,
sleeping on the couch.
great.
Anyway,
Guest star Milo, thank you. Thanks for
yeah,
blessing us with that. Um, yes, and yes, boundaries. Oh my gosh. Yes, I think that's something that a lot of people are having to learn right now too,
right.
is yeah, learning to say no. And especially right when you're the one that's expected to always say yes. And I think that's just, yeah, so much wisdom there.
Yeah.
As we wrap up, we've already touched on this. Man, I wish we could go for hours. This is just so fun
This
chatting with
is
you.
fun. I hope we get the chance to talk again.
Yes, yes. And I hope we get to be in person one day,
We will. We
Yes,
will. We're gonna
yes.
meet at a conference. We're gonna have a drink together. It's gonna
Yep.
be swell.
Gonna be a great drink and great time. Yeah. So so we've touched on this a little bit, in everything we've said already, but as we think about kindness and grounding it in a spirituality, thinking about kindness as the Hebrew idea of chesed, right? Of that loving mercy, of this kindness, loving mercy, um, a,
Mm.
a kindness that is active, acts of chesed, acts of kindness. what could this active kindness, this loving mercy look like in the face of injustice and just in the world that we're in? We've touched on it a little bit, but if you just had to
Right.
give a short sermon of what that could look like
Mm.
right now, what would you
You
what
know
would you say?
what? I have never actually heard, is it what translation is it? Did you say it was Greek or Jewish? What
Hebrew, yeah.
Hebrew, sorry, Hebrew, not Jewish. Yeah, I haven't actually ever heard that word before, but I do latch on to that description of it being a practice, because
Mm,
something I'm constantly talking about to my team, and I know they're tired of me here saying it, is that Christianity is supposed to be a practice, which
mm,
means that incorporated in it is a lived experience, right? It's not just this somebody gave me some dogma and a book and basically I have rules for how to keep moving forward. No, it is a lived experience where you are using the Bible to constantly theologize your experience, right? And so I see that Christianity, if you call yourself a Christian, it means that you're constantly practicing this love, you're constantly practicing this kindness, and it's not something that you check off, I did this right, I did this right, I did this right, because it's supposed to be a discovery of, oh my goodness, I found God in this wild place that I never thought I would. And this thing happened in my life, and I did what I thought was natural. And what I discovered was God was also there. You know, that's what it's supposed to be. And I feel like that's also what kindness is. It is this discovery of the ways that you are able to stretch yourself into other people's experiences, and lift them up, and thus create, a heaven on earth. So
ah, amen, amen,
that's
amen,
my
amen,
sermonette.
amen.
That's my tiny little sermon.
That was a great sermon. I got my fill of church from this. That's great.
JJ, you're so sweet. I want to hang out with you, like, for real, for real.
Same, no, same. Let's just dive through this camera and
I know,
um,
like Philly to Boston, we'll figure it out.
exactly. No, that's great. And I mean, we could go all night on this. I wanted to highlight again what you were saying about Christianity as a practice.
Yeah.
Because I think that's not something that everyone realizes, or at least I didn't when I was growing up in my
Mhm.
small town white Methodist church. Of like, yes, we did, we helped out at food pantries, but like Christianity was still a set of beliefs, that we
Yeah.
had to believe and we had to confess. And youth group and, summer camp was really all about those powerful spiritual moments where you
Yeah.
confessed. And I think that's such an important shift to say it's the way I live my life. It's the way that those spiritual moments and these truths that I find are impacting the way that I'm interacting with others, with myself, with creation,
Right.
with the divine. That's just, yes, I love that you said that.
If I could just leave like one more comparison
Yeah.
of like what I deem practice, it is my mother is she's a healthcare professional. She works very high in the healthcare field, which means that she doesn't just um, show up to work and clock out. She has to every year she has to keep up her credits, which means that they understand that there are constantly new things going on in the medical field that she has to
Mm,
continue to keep abreast with. And I feel like that's the same thing with Christianity. It's more of showing up in real life and helping people and doing things versus just going to church every week, right?
mm,
You go
mm,
to church so that you can get those credits, right? But then
mm.
you show up in life ready to do the work, ready to help out, ready to exercise this thing that you've learned. And I feel like that is a piece of the puzzle that we're constantly overlooking.
Mm, I love that. You have the best examples. Whew, Pastor
Mixed
Crystal,
metaphors
everybody.
is like my passion. Too
Well,
many metaphors, I'm here.
well, I'm just so thankful again that you took this time after 6 p.m. To
Yeah,
join
honey.
me. And thanks for everything that you do. Just all of the passion and the wisdom and the joy that you put into this world. I'm just so thankful to know you. And
Of
yeah,
course. Of course. Thank you so much. And thank you for your wonderful book. It's such, I think, an addition to our uh, what is the word I'm going for? Sometimes I just blank on words, but I think it's in addition to the conversation that we're having right now. So thank
Mm,
you.
thanks. Thanks. And so where can people keep up
Yeah.
with you? Where can people follow you at?
You can follow me personally at Crystal Cheatham on most platforms, but if you want to find out more about our Bible app, just go to our Bible app anywhere and you'll find us, ourbibleapp.com, and figure out. So February 1st, we're launching this Kickstarter where you can pre-order the book, the anthology, the Deconstructionist Playbook. So keep your eye out for that on all of the socials. We'll definitely be tweeting about it, and you should be a part of what we're doing there. Yeah.
Awesome. And I only just now realized that I pronounced your name wrong. So, okay, good. Now I
Cheatham.
know.
Can't beat them, cheat them. That's all right.
That's great. I'm so excited for that anthology.
Yeah.
And again, just thank you and good night,
Thank you,
everybody.
JJ. Good night, everybody.